We're living in a moment where we are seeing people adopting what used to be denounced as fascist policies, the shutting down of free speech, the destruction of opposition voices, and the people who are doing it are arguing that the president is a supporter of fascism. It is Orwellian. I think it'd be very useful for people to go back and read 1984 to get a sense of how the attack on truth is so important to our enemies. You know, they say truth is the first casualty of warfare, and I think we're seeing that happen now.
Hey friends, I wish I had something noteworthy to share with you today, but it's been a really slow day, not much news to report. Oh yeah, my YouTube channel was terminated for absolutely no reason. Hey, so here's the thing. I've gone through a gamut of emotions today, starting with denial and then moving towards anger and then pretty soon acceptance. Actually, I'm not accepting this at all, and I'm going to fight to get my YouTube channel reinstated. I'm going to fight for truth, I'm going to fight for justice, and I'm going to fight to end this tyranny and fascism. And if I need to file a federal lawsuit against YouTube, essentially for defamation, then that's what I'll do, because they're defaming my good name by deleting my YouTube channel, which suggests that I'm one of these people that has a reckless disregard for their community guidelines when I've never violated even one of their vague community guidelines. So here's an update. I was scheduled this morning to talk to Harley Schlanger and Roger Stone. I logged on to make contact with Harley. It was at that moment I tried to load my YouTube channel. So I'll play that interview with Harley for you, and you can kind of hear how this all unfolded in real time for me this morning as I realized what had happened to my YouTube channel. But what I want to do here before I play that for you, and by the way, Roger Stone did not pick up. He was unable to join us today. But before I play that for you, I just want to thank everyone. I've had an absolute outpouring of support, and it just means so much to me to know that I'm not standing alone against these winds of tyranny. So thank you all so very, very much. Anyway, I just want you to know that I wrote about what happened to me today specifically. It's pinned at the top of SGTreport.com, and it's called YouTube is Even Worse Than Big Brother. They delete history altogether. And what I want to do here real quickly is just read a paragraph or two from the end of this and thank so many of those people, names you'll recognize, who reached out to me today, and it just really fills me with a lot of hope, and I really appreciate it. Some of those people are, of course, Harley Schlanger, Mike Adams, Chris Dwayne, Aaron and Melissa Dykes over there at TrueStream Media, Robert David Steele, John Robertson and the Hagmans over at the Hagman Report, Jordan Sather via Twitter, V the Guerrilla Economist, Frank from the Quite Frankly podcast, our friend Erin T. Scott, who made a very nice video about the termination of my channel. She pretty much had that video up before I even knew what had happened. Bill Holter, Carrie Lutz, Sarah Westall, Gans Shimura, Tracy Beans, Bix Weir, Will Lair, and of course my good friend and SGT Report daily contributor, Matthew. So thank you, each and every one of you. I also want to thank so many of you who reached out to me specifically via Twitter, via my email account, via comments on SGT Report. And lastly, thank you to my patrons who support me over at Patreon. Hopefully I'll get my main channel reinstated, but you can find me on Real.video, Mike Adams' site. You can find me on BitChute, and of course you can find me here on this backup YouTube channel, SGT Report 2. So thank you very much for subscribing, and thank you so very much for standing with me. Here's how it played out in real time this morning with Harley. This account has been terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. Do you effing believe that?
God.
They're so evil.
Yeah, the question is whose community?
Yeah, and their guidelines are extremely vague. I should call up that YouTube. I had saved those. Let's see if I can find an old one from my first 2 strikes. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. To those of you who are concerned that my YouTube channel has been terminated by YouTube for violating YouTube's community guidelines, you're right. The funny part is I didn't know about this. It happened while I slept overnight. That's the way they do it. The same thing happened to High Impact Flix's channel, except he got his 3 strikes overnight while he slept. And by the way, that was a good channel, a very pro-Second Amendment channel. The same thing happened to Jordan Sather. Now, Jordan Sather did get his channel back after about a month or 2, so maybe there's hope for my channel, but the bottom line is my account on YouTube with over 344,000 subscribers has been terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. I have Harley Schlanger on the phone right now to help me process this. I'm really quite shocked at the moment. Harley, welcome.
Hi, Sean.
Thanks for coming on, Harley. Now, guys, Harley and Roger Stone were supposed to be joining us this morning. Roger Stone has not connected with us for whatever reason, so we've missed Roger on this call. And I said to Harley, literally, Harley, I found out about this 5 minutes before, not even, 2 minutes before I called you, didn't I? And I was shocked.
Yeah. Well, I know, Sean, you had told me that they had 2 strikes on you for some vague reason. And these are not really vague reasons. You're gaining support. There's a whole community out there that's hungry for news, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, and you see it in the number of views you've had on YouTube. So I think this is part of the whole deep state operation to try and shut down alternative voices, because all they want you to think is Trump is a Russian agent, and anyone who supports Trump is suspect of being a Russian agent. And we're living in very difficult times, and people are going to have to figure out how to communicate as creatively as possible.
Well, guys, you can find me. I have a SGT Report backup channel, and I guess if you're listening to this interview, you know that, because how in the world else am I going to get this information out to people? I'm on BitChute. I'm over on Steemit. I'm on Mike Adams' new platform, Real.video. The bottom line here, Harley, is that it's real clear now that it's happening on Twitter, it's happening on Facebook, it's happening to people on YouTube, and the best way for our enemies to silence dissent is to terminate it.
Roger Stone had his Twitter account shut down, and he was given no explanation. This was about 4 months ago, I think, when Mueller started targeting Roger.
Well, and I wanted to ask Roger about that. It's a shame he wasn't able to join us. I can get your thoughts on it here in a second, but let's just stay on this YouTube censorship, this Stasi squad on YouTube that is terminating channels. My last interview was with Robert David Steele, and listen to this. This is YouTube's community guidelines. This is why you get strikes. Now, by the way, my first strike was for an interview I did with Christopher Bolin, the author and researcher, and that interview was about 9/11 and what really happened that day. The other strike I got, I believe it was for a video called The Unbelievable Horrible Truth, or The Horrible Truth, which was about, in part, YouTube's censorship. And then it was primarily about the Second Amendment, and it was about our rights to stand up for ourselves in the Bill of Rights. So those are the 2 reasons. Those were my first 2 strikes. Listen to the video content restrictions as YouTube lays them out in their community guidelines. And you tell me, Harley, if this sounds like the type of videos I make. I'll quote, YouTube doesn't allow content that encourages or promotes violent or dangerous acts that have an inherent risk of serious physical harm or death. For example, it's not okay to post videos showing drug abuse, underage drinking and smoking, or bomb making. The only depictions of such activities that we may allow need to be educational or documentary in nature and shouldn't be designed to help or encourage others to imitate them. The impact of strikes. This is the second strike applied to your account within 3 months. Now, this is, of course, guys, this is the one I got for that second video that they... You see, here's the thing, Harley. They don't explain to you why you got a strike. They don't give you a time code that says, hey, if you go back to your original video, which we've now deleted, here's where you violated our community guidelines. They don't do that. As it pertains to my third strike here today that happened while I slept and they terminated my channel, I have not gotten an official notice in my email from YouTube at all. The channel's just gone. Now, does that sound like we have freedom of speech in this country? I think it's unlawful. Does it sound like we have free speech in this country to you?
Well, no, this is censorship, but you can see how they think. They think that you provoking people to think is a danger to them. And that's really the way this thing works. If you look at just something that's happened in the last days, the reaction to the Trump-Putin summit, there's almost no discussion of why it's important for the U.S. and Russia to be talking. No discussion about arms control. No discussion about fighting terrorism. It's all about Putin's a thug, Trump's a Putin puppet, and that's a form of censorship. Now, what you did in interviews with me and with others is you brought out what's the context in which this is happening. Why is this happening? What are they afraid of? And we see what they're afraid of. They're afraid of people finding out the truth. And I think that's probably the reason that you got hit with a third strike.
Well, and here's the other problem. And I'll read you this last paragraph here in their community guidelines outline here so that people understand why you got a strike from the Stasi squad. And I'll quote, "We understand that users seldom intend to violate our policies. That's why strikes don't last forever. This strike will expire in 3 months. However, it's important to understand that if you receive 3 strikes within 3 months, we'll terminate your account, rendering it permanently inaccessible." End quote. So, Harley, it stands to reason I had 2 strikes, the first of which was going to fall off sometime in mid-August, the second of which would have fallen off about a week later, and then my account would have been clean again. So they had to give me this third strike while they still could, and that's why my channel's gone.
So that means no one can find any of your past interviews on YouTube.
All of my work since 2010, over 1,000 videos and interviews, gone like it never even existed. So this is very much like Orwell's 1984. Not only will they censor truth and speech, they'll just erase history.
Yeah. You know, I just wrote an article where I described the reaction of the media, the screaming against Trump, to something also from Orwell's 1984. You remember the scenes about the 2-minute hate, where they have on a big screen people lying about the enemies of the state, and the audience is supposed to stand up and cheer and get whipped into a frenzy? A lot of this is right out of Orwell's playbook.
Well, that's right, and it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse before it gets better, unless the government itself steps in somehow and can regulate YouTube as some sort of public utility, right? And well, there's already been congressional hearings about this, the Diamond and Silk hearings. I mean, there's been hearings about the censorship of conservative speech, but these big social media companies, YouTube included, don't seem to care, and they don't seem to learn at all from even the outrage that happens when they terminate channels like mine. And it's very much a David versus Goliath situation, me being David, them being Goliath, because when they delete my platform, I have no voice. So that's what we're up against, Harley. And you know what? The bottom line is, I had 344,000 subscribers because I had truth on my side. You don't build a channel over time that grows into something with that many subscribers if you are a liar telling falsehoods all day, or if your information does not resonate with the public. So the best way to silence dissent is to terminate it.
Yeah, and I think you see the other problem is that the Congress hasn't been willing to fight this, because for most of the people in the Congress, they have access to channels, and the people who are speaking truth, like Rand Paul, find themselves under withering attack. So they're really... It's a bullying that's going on to silence anybody who is outside of the mainstream. In fact, to demonize people who don't go along with the main talking points of the mainstream media. And Sean, you pointed this out many years ago with this whole Operation Mockingbird. This was a strategy adopted by the so-called deep state quite a while ago. Look, in Britain, they have this classification process where they can order media not to cover an issue. So I think we're heading into very difficult and dark times, and people are going to really have to scramble to find a way to reach out. And I know you're doing that, and I think you should just give as often as possible a sense to people of where they can go to find your work.
Well, let's just do this in real time because honestly, I'm just shell-shocked. So I am going to tweet this out. I found out about my YouTube channel being taken down now exactly 30 minutes ago. Harley joined me here at the top of the hour. Roger Stone was supposed to hop on the line with us too, but we've missed him for some reason. So let me tweet this out in real time while you're on the phone here, Harley. My YouTube channel has been terminated. Third strike for no good reason. Censorship, hashtag Big Brother. Please tweet to @TeamYouTube and demand that this injustice be immediately corrected by restoring my channel. @Mike Adams, Liz Crokin, Jordan Sather, Paul Joseph Watson, Paul Craig Roberts. Man, I wish there was more character room here for me, Harley. I'd like to tweet this out to everybody I know, but Twitter restricts you to just a certain number of characters. So let me send this out. I'm going to include a picture here of my deleted channel, and then we'll get back here on track. Boy, I'll tell you, Harley, truth is a lonely warrior, as my friend author James Perloff has said and wrote a book called just that. Truth really is a lonely warrior, isn't it?
You know, Sean, there's an old Yiddish proverb, the truth never dies, but it often lives a miserable life.
Got that right. I wonder how many people listening have gone through hell, as I have, and as many of us have in our own ways. Look, there's a lot going on that I don't talk about or make public, and I try not to whine or say I'm the focus of any sort of malfeasance or nefarious activities. Harley, I try hard just to get out there and have good conversations with good people like you, but it has been difficult. It's been really hard, and many of us who speak truth are under attack, and I think that this is a very tangible example of that. We are absolutely under attack, because if they can cripple us financially, they can shut us up. If they can cripple us in the public square by taking away our voice and terminating our channel and crippling us financially, then they win. But see, that's what they're left with, right? Is dirty tricks. They can't play fairly because they cannot win this conversation. They can't win this war of ideas when truth is allowed to be spoken.
Losing.
They're losing.
They are losing. They are losing, and their system's breaking down, and that's what they're afraid of. But keep in mind, I know this from the inside from what was done to my organization, the LaRouche organization, in the 1980s, and the point person in the original persecution of Lyndon LaRouche was none other than Robert S. Mueller, who handled the Get LaRouche Task Force in the initial case in Boston in 1986-87. So, LaRouche spent 5 years in prison. Some of my associates spent 7-8 years in prison for charges such as illegally taking loans, which they didn't pay back, and they couldn't pay them back because the company was shut down in a bankruptcy proceeding by the government. They took over our companies and stopped paying back loans and then said we had a conspiracy to not pay back loans. So you're absolutely right. These are people who have been conducting these kinds of policies for a long time, and in the modern age, the social media outflanked them a little bit. Trump is using Twitter to outflank them. And now they're coming back with a blanket censorship policy. And I think that's what hit you today.
All right. Well, why don't we round out the conversation here with talking a little bit about the madness that is best exemplified by the FBI raid on Trump's lawyer's office. And now we have CNN reporting on hush money for yet another mistress and Trump's lawyer turning on him. The most important thing is attorney-client privilege. And you'll notice that the FBI was happy to raid Trump's lawyer's office. Meanwhile, we see no FBI raid at the DNC to seize the server, which would prove or disprove the official narrative of Russian hacking. And we see no FBI raid on the Clinton Foundation to seize all of their documents, which would prove bribery, while Hillary was Secretary of State, and worse, probably treason. This double standard that we're living through is very, very, very painful, Harley, to any thinking person who actually cares about justice.
By the way, Sean, you think those Clinton Foundation documents still exist somewhere? I'm rather skeptical about that.
Yeah, they've had plenty of time to just cleanse everything, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's worse than a double standard. We're living in a moment where we are seeing people adopting what used to be denounced as fascist policies, the shutting down of free speech, the destruction of opposition voices, and the people who are doing it are arguing that the president is a supporter of fascism. So it is Orwellian, and I think it'd be very useful for people to go back and read 1984 to get a sense of how the attack on truth is so important to our enemies. They say truth is the first casualty of warfare, and I think we're seeing that happen now.
Well, we certainly are, and I'm really glad that you're able to still join the call here with me today. It's a momentous day. I honestly had no idea when I was getting ready this morning to call you that they had terminated my channel, and I opened YouTube and it said log in, I'm just in shock, Harley. I'm just in shock. I shouldn't be. I saw this coming. I knew it was coming. When they give you 2 strikes, I mean, I guess the best strategy is just to shut up for 3 months, right?
Well, that's what they'd like to do, and you didn't do it. You kept going because in your view and in the view of 344,000 subscribers, you were telling things that were true and that needed to be said. So
Yep.
this is not just an attack on you, it's an attack on all those people who have turned to you to have an access point to truth.
Well, you know what's funny? The other problem is, Harley, I don't know which video got that 3rd strike. And so as it pertains to just shutting up for 3 months, that didn't make sense to me either, because that Christopher Bolin 9/11 interview that I did, that had been up for a couple of months. So they went retroactively. Somebody flagged it, and then YouTube gave it a strike. It had already been up for two and a half months, and it had over 100,000 views. So they can retroactively give you a strike for anything. And in this case, I have no idea what the 3rd strike was for. They haven't sent me an email. They haven't said it was for this video, much less whatever speech it was that offended them so badly. So this very much is the very epitome of Orwell's 1984, where Big Brother not only controls the narrative, they control the history by deleting it, by altering and or deleting it. It's the absolute epitome of fascism. Harley, tell people how they can find you online, will you please?
Well, I'm available at harleysch@gmail. And as I've been doing, I've been sending people access to my weekly articles. They can sign in at the site for my weekly articles. And Sean, I'll get out something also, see if I can get LaRouche Pack to put something up on this atrocious attack on you.
Well, I'm humbled, and I really appreciate that, Harley. Thank you very much, and thank you for your voice and friendship over the years. And this won't be the end of my story, hopefully. I'll continue to upload videos here on my backup channel, and Harley and I will certainly have further conversations into the future. And maybe next time we'll be able to get Roger Stone on as well. Harley, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, Sean, and you should know my friendship and support for you won't change either because of this.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. God bless. And guys, for those of you who have found this interview here on my backup channel, thank you so much. Please subscribe, and please spread this information within your own sphere of social influence. And please, if you're on Twitter, contact @TeamYouTube and ask them for an explanation. I think at the end of the day, Harley, we deserve an explanation at the very least. If they're just going to terminate truth, if they're going to terminate speech, aren't we at least due an explanation?
Sure, even though it will be a lie.
That's right. All right, guys. For real news 24/7, you can still find us at SGTreport.com, and I do appreciate your support on Patreon as well. God bless to all of you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
But I think this is all part of the plan to destroy America and really trying to create the globalist one world government.